What's up, everybody? Hope y'all are all having a great day. I'm Anthony. On today's video, we are going to talk about 5 more reasons why I do not trust our food supply. That's right, today we're going to be talking about 5 more reasons why I do not trust our food supply system. Now, if you remember, about 6 months ago, I did the first video in this where I talked about the initial 5 reasons why I don't trust our food supply system here in the United States. I did a grand overview of a lot of things, and I didn't hit on a lot of the ones that really make me angry because I was trying to kind of test the waters and use ones that we can all agree are humongous issues, especially those who have never heard of those. That's why I mentioned them in the first video. But in this one, I've gotten a couple requests from people I've talked to outside of YouTube, people I know in the real world, that have actually listened to me go on these hardcore rants before, and they asked me to get into more specifics. So that's what I'm going to do with this video. I'm going to get into more specifics, things you need to look out for on the back labels of these products to make sure that you are not ingesting something like this, and you are definitely not feeding this to your children. All right, so number one of the main ones that I have to personally watch out for, especially because I do have a 4-year-old in my household, is artificial or synthetic food dyes. Now, I know a lot of people have talked about this in the alternative side of things. That's why actually a lot of people decide to cook at home now, because they are sticking these food colorings in everywhere. But this is something that's definitely geared towards children in our food supply, and it really makes me mad. Now, artificial food dyes, for the sake of this video, I'm going to talk about the main ones that you can see on the back label. If you look, turn over any cereal box or whatever, and you're going to see usually 1 or 2 of these. It's going to be blue number 1 and number 2, red 3 and 40, green 3, and yellow 5 and 6. Those are the main ones, but you also have things that are the color white, which is titanium dioxide. You're going to see that as a whitening agent. Now, the reason why a lot of these really kind of piss me off is, actually, I'm just going to go ahead and show you. This is from the NIH, the Anthony Fauci NIH, the one that gets a whole bunch of grants from the United States government, the one that you can pretty much tell what's going on by reading their papers, because those are the ones that are going to be gifted a lot of the money to do a lot of this research. If they're admitting certain things, then you might want to start paying attention, because this is one of the humongous government mouthpieces. So this is directly from their website in regards to synthetic food dyes. Alright, so on food dyes, synthesized originally from coal tar, now petroleum, have long been controversial because of safety concerns. Many dyes have been banned because of their adverse effects on laboratory animals or inadequate testing. This review finds that all of the 9 currently US-approved dyes raise health concerns of varying degrees. Red 3 causes cancer in animals, and there is evidence that several other dyes also carcinogenic. 3 dyes, red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6, have been found to be contaminated with benzidine and other carcinogens, and 4 are cause of hypersensitivity reactions. So if the NIH is talking about it in that term, in that way, you should probably start paying attention to how they are in your food and why certain governments around the world have banned them. All right, now the main issue for me personally, because I have a child, is there's a lot of things at the grocery store, especially from like waist level down, children's eye level, that are geared towards kids, okay? Fruit snacks, cereals, whatever. There are things that are advertised specifically for children, and 9 times out of 10 here in the United States, you turn around that box, there's going to be some form of food dye in there, and if there's not, it's because they are a more expensive product. If you want to find something that's going to be budget friendly, and you find something, especially for those who happen to be on, say, food stamps or WIC, you're going to find a lot of those products have these food dyes in there. So the fact that they're linked to neurological disorders like ADHD, hyperactivity, sometimes depression, that is a humongous red flag for me. And I understand, especially after I showed you what I just did for the NIH, that red 3 is pretty much becoming universally banned everywhere. You don't really find that here in the United States even that much anymore. They usually use red 40 now. But even those, considering the fact that they're all made from petrochemicals, they're made from oil, that should automatically be like, okay, I'm eating oil. You should be like, I shouldn't be feeding this to my children. So it's to the point now where I'm one of those people who is, I'm pretty sure I piss off my in-laws, and I'm pretty sure I piss off everybody around me who tries to give my kids some form of candy, because I have to look at the ingredients before you give it to my child. Because yeah, you'd be like, oh, it's just a piece, you know, it's just a Starburst, or it's just a Skittle, or it's just whatever kind of candy. But you don't have to deal with the crazy child that all of a sudden happens because she's not used to getting this stuff, and she does get it, and she runs around like a psychopath for like an hour or two. So you don't have to deal with it, I do. That's why I'm so hardcore about deciding what goes in my child's mouth. So this is even an issue that me and my wife have to deal with, because she's not used to looking at labels as much as I am, and I say, no, don't give that to her, don't give that to her, because this is everywhere. And the effects, while not super researched here in the United States, they have been researched all around the world. Places like the EU, certain countries in the EU have banned a lot of these ingredients, which brings me to another point. How come they can make these ingredients disappear in those countries using natural solutions, but they can't do that here in the United States? Why is that? Because it costs maybe 2 more cents, 3 more cents to the whole product? And that's sad. That's pathetic that we've reached a point where the almighty dollar, or even making the prospect of 2 more pennies, has infiltrated people's morality in what we give our children. So the fact that that exists, and the fact that dyes are still present in a lot of foods, especially foods geared toward children, that's why it makes number 1 on today's video. 2 on today's video is going to be an ingredient called potassium bromate. Okay, this is going to be found in a lot of breads and doughs and things of that sort, especially ultra processed. When I say ultra processed, I mean not just putting ingredients together to process them, but actually making them so processed they live on the shelf for a very long time before they can go bad. So that's usually what ultra processed means. Now, the reason why potassium bromate is such a big issue for me is because I eat a lot of breads and type. That's why if you've ever watched the channel for any length of time, you see a whole bunch of bread videos from me. There's a time a couple years ago where I was actually making my own bread every week, and I didn't buy a loaf of bread for literally an entire year because I wanted to see if I could do it, and I did. I achieved my goal, but that was right after my child was born, and that last 2 months was pretty difficult because I was dealing with a newborn, especially one that just got out of the NICU, you know, still hooked up to all the fancy equipment. And it was pretty difficult. So I can totally understand if you have multiple kids that you can't actually do that. But I wanted to do this part in this video because potassium bromate is stuffed into a lot of commercial breads, anything with yeast, and it's actually being advertised as a conditioner. It's springier, it makes the dough springier, stronger, and makes the gluten work better. So that's why they put it into a lot of breads. But there is a humongous issue with this product because it is actually banned in places like the European Union, China, and India. I know some of y'all are thinking, if those countries even ban it, then there's probably a major issue with it, which is very true, because it not only does it irritate your nose, lungs, your throat, you know, your respiratory system, but it's also been linked to certain things like kidney cancers and thyroid cancers. Okay, obviously this is super inconclusive because they continue to use it. I'm pretty sure the money that's involved with a lot of these research funds are being pulled if they come up with any kind of link, but that's just, you know, speculation. I'm not going to say that's fact, but it's just one of those things where it's illegal everywhere else, but we're still using it in the United States. But there's a good news. There's a lot of companies that realize there's a problem with it, so they're pulling it voluntarily. So if you do look a lot of your breads at the store, you're going to see it's missing from as many as it used to be. But one of the main things I want to bring up with the video is the fact that the UK did a study as to potassium bromate before they made it illegal to find out why it was still being present in a lot of these doughs. And what they found was that the United States and the FDA and all these places were saying that when you cook it, when you add heat, potassium bromate turns into potassium bromide, which is non-cancer causing and it's harmless. Okay, that's what they said. So the UK said, okay, well, we're going to test your theory because that's what good science does, and they cooked potassium bromate to see if it turned into potassium bromide. And they found in their study, this is like in the 90s, and they found in their study that that is not true, that it still contains potassium bromate after cooking. So that's why they said, nope, we're going to make it illegal. We're not even going to entertain this idea in the UK. And guess what? In the 90s, companies from the United States are like, okay, fine, we're not going to put it in your stuff. So they're able to take it out for them, but they're not willing to take it out for us here in the United States. And that is a humongous red flag for me. That's why it makes number 2. And that brings me to number 3. Meats in this country. I'm talking regular meats that you buy from the butcher section at your local grocery store, especially places like Walmart, which I'll keep those thoughts to myself, are all pumped full of a salt water mixture called a brining solution before you even get your hands on them. And the reason why they do this is because it's supposed to keep the meat moist and adds additional flavors so it tastes better to you. But in the industry, this is called plumping, okay? And plumping has been a major issue for about 30 years now, because what these companies are doing is, instead of injecting a little bit of brine, if you've ever cooked turkey for Thanksgiving, you brine your own turkey, most likely, okay? It is an important step in terms of like taste and whatnot. But the fact that they're doing this before you even buy it means they're adding weight, okay? Salt water costs nothing, but they're putting it in so many products now that you're buying that that's why when you go to the grocery store, you look at these, especially chicken, pork, things like that. You got these nice, big, humongous looking cuts of meat. You're like, man, these things are pretty big. That's because they're half plumped. They're pumped full of water. That's why when you freeze them and then you thaw them out, you have a big swimming pool of fluid underneath your meat. I don't know about y'all, but when I go to the grocery store and I have to look at the prices that they're actually having the audacity to charge me for per pound of meat, okay? If I'm gonna go buy something for, say, $8 a pound, I'm buying 1 pound, which is $8 worth, and up to 20 to 30% of that is salt water. That's where my issue is. It's literally costing me $2 and $3, maybe $2 per that price in just salt water. I'm not spending $2 on salt water. And apparently it's happening everywhere. It's industry wide now, to the point where you have to actually look hard. I actually looked for like half an hour last night on the FDA and USDA websites to try to find anything that showed the results of this. I'm gonna go ahead and do everybody a favor and put down below in the description at least one source that I found talking about plumping from the USDA and how they justify it. And I'm gonna let y'all be your own, choice on the matter. I don't want you to sit there and think that I'm telling you to do anything. I want you to be able to read information yourself and think critically and determine if you care about it or not. But I just want you to think about this. People are literally consumers are spending $2 billion a year on salt water, okay? And people that buy organic, they think that they're getting around this because it's, hey, I'm buying organic. But no, guess what? The USDA has labeled water and salt to be organic. So yes, it is present in organic meats as well. So the fact that that exists and the fact that they are doing this to the consumer just annoys me even more. So you need to pay attention when you're buying things like chicken breast. So the average chicken breast weighs between 5 to 7 ounces at most in today's birds. So if you're finding chicken breasts out there that are 10, 11 ounces, there's a pretty good chance that it has been plumped. And that is a huge issue, hence why it makes this list. All right, so that brings me to number 4, and that's going to be the presence of additional sugars and sweeteners in everything. Have you noticed that it is very difficult to go shopping these days and find something that does not have the presence of some form of sweetener? Now, whether those sweeteners are real sugar, high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, saccharin, sucralose, all these sweeteners are injected into foods and drinks these days for one main reason, and that's going to be because it's addicting. That's right, sugar is more addictive than cocaine. We've known this for decades. So why is it appearing in so many foods? Well, it's a result of a whole bunch of these fad diets that have come out that have said fat is bad. Well, guess what? Fat is flavor, okay? So if you take out the fat from food, it tastes horrible. So how do you get people to eat it? Well, you have to add sugar to make it taste somewhat better, or else people ain't gonna buy the product. So that's why you're seeing food being douched with sugar, because they want to make sure that you're still eating it. In the last 15 years or so, the word's been getting out on sugar, the fact that they're able to hide sugar in products without actually having to process those calories, because those calories aren't actually added until after you eat them. So it makes it look like you have less calories because you're not actually, accounting for fat, but you're adding sugar. So they're not, it's like a weird little multiplication issue they have in a lot of these nutritional labels, and bypassing the amount of calories added because sugar is only added after the fact. So they're able to hide a lot of those calories by just doing this. But when it comes down to things like artificial sweeteners, The fact of the matter is the science is getting out on those too, okay? And there's a big problem with it affecting people's guts, how they digest things. It's also starting to affect people's tastes. So now normal food doesn't even taste right because they're so used to eating these artificial sweeteners. So I have a humongous vendetta against those as well. But I guess the main reason why I'm wanting to add it to this list is the fact that sugar is the main cause of diabetes in this country. For those that don't know, there's two types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Most of the time people are born with type 1 diabetes, and type 2 diabetes is called adult onset diabetes. So how does this happen? I'm trying to at least educate y'all to understand how diabetes happens, because a lot of people don't realize till after they already have it. Well, when you eat sugar, your body, it goes into your bloodstream, okay? Your body digests it, and it goes into the bloodstream, upping your blood sugar, okay? In order for your body to use it, i.e. your cells to absorb that, the pancreas has to release insulin. Insulin is basically the key to the front door to the cells that opens up the cell door so the sugar can go in. As your body absorbs the sugar in the cells, that blood sugar starts to come down. That's how your body normally processes sugar, because it's an energy source. Now, how is this an issue, and why is it leading to things like diabetes? Well, when you've had high sugar diets for so long, your body starts to develop things like insulin resistance, meaning it takes more insulin to do the same thing it did maybe 10 years earlier in your age. So if you keep on eating sugar, it's going to lead to, pre-diabetes and ultimately diabetes. Diabetes used to be called type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes because it used to happen past the age of 45. Basically all type 2 diabetes is where your body no longer makes the amount of insulin that it used to because it's been doing it for so long. So you have to add either additional insulin or stop eating so much sugar because your body can't handle it. So that's why you see a lot of the population over 45, 50 becoming diabetic, and that's why you see a lot of the how long you're going to live ages dropping down, because you basically cut off 6 years of your lifespan if you become diabetic. Now, it's no secret, if I've talked to any of y'all outside of here, that one of my biggest fears in life is becoming diabetic because of the food that I eat, which is why I make so many strides to try to help my own digestive system, my own body, and my family's bodies by at least feeding real food to the point where I'm not having these added sugars, okay? The fact that we have a massive problem with children these days becoming type 2 diabetic, which used to be called, again, adult onset diabetes, is no longer called adult onset diabetes, it's just called type 2 diabetes because kids are starting to develop it. As a matter of fact, if you look at the numbers from 2011 till now, the number of kids who have type 2 diabetes has doubled, just about doubled. So that should be alarming to everybody, but the fact of the matter is that all that's doing is keeping people on some form of pharmaceutical regimen for the rest of their lives. And if you know anything about this channel and the fact that I try to do holistic, diet-based medicines, you'll know why I have such a humongous issue with that. Alrighty, so that's going to bring me to number 5, okay? The last one I'm going to talk about in this video. Again, there's still a whole bunch of these I can discuss, so if you want to see more or hear more about it, type down below in the comments that you want to see another video about it and stuff, because I can keep going for a long time. But number 5 is going to be the presence of heavy metals in your food. Now, when I mention heavy metals, I'm talking about things like lead, arsenic, cadmium, mercury. These exist in food, something we should all know and understand, but you have to also understand there are certain pathways that your body uses to get rid of this stuff, and a lot of it, especially things like lead, accumulate in the body. Okay, your body doesn't naturally get rid of them. You have to actually take, like, what is it called, chelates, to actually get rid of it and rid it from your body. So yeah, there are certain foods that can help bind to it in your body so you can get it out, like dark leafy greens and vitamin C. It's also going to stop your body from absorbing heavy metals, but not a lot of people eat things that are, natural vitamin C or leafy greens anymore. So you're seeing an accumulation of heavy metals. That's a loud bug. So you're seeing a heavy accumulation of heavy metals in people's bodies, which is causing adverse effects. Now I'm going to go ahead and speculate here. I'm not going to use any kind of facts, so don't go ahead and fact check me, YouTube, or people watching this channel. I'm just going ahead and mention something that's been talked about in scientific circles. Alzheimer's, and while we're seeing a humongous increase in Alzheimer's patients, people are starting to question the neurological symptoms or reasoning why this is happening. And a lot of those questions are starting to circle back to heavy metal toxicity in the body and parasites. Well, heavy metal toxicity is a real thing, okay? A lot of people are walking around so saturated with heavy metals that it's amazing they can even function. And there's a lot of symptoms that are related to having heavy metals in your body, some of which are listed here. You avidly fish, you're going to know about mercury because there's going to be mercury present in a lot of fish. This is why they try to tell you you should only eat certain types of fish only so often, okay? A lot of predatory fish, things like tuna, swordfish, shark, have very high levels of mercury because basically each fish has some level of mercury in it, okay? And when one fish eats another fish, congratulations, that fish has now doubled its level of mercury. Well, when that fish gets eaten by another fish, and that fish gets eaten by another fish, sharks eat fish all the time, constantly, so they have very high levels of mercury in their bodies. Which is why it is not advised to eat things like shark or swordfish or tuna or bowfin or like big catfish often, okay? You understand these predatory fish are eating other fish that have, increasing their amount of mercury in their bloodstream, which is going to do the same to you when you eat them. So you got to pay attention to that because sometimes it is stored actually in that muscle that you are eating. So that's where mercury poisoning comes into play. But things like lead can be found in other countries spraying pesticides, whatever on their food, and now you're finding it in your food. As a matter of fact, there was actually a study recently about chocolate, which really makes me sad because I like chocolate, where there's a lot of lead being found in chocolate these days because, again, other countries don't have the same standards we do, and it winds up in the food. The reason why I'm mentioning it as number 5 in this video is I want you to understand that a lot of people put their trust and faith in government to help them avoid having things like heavy metal toxicity in their body. But you have to understand there is no legally stoppable limit to lead in food. All it is there's a certain amount they have to put the California Prop 65 warning on the back of the food. So you can see, especially in a lot of children's food, that lead is being found present, and it's being found in amounts where if you eat more than one dose of that food in a day, you are overloading your children with things like lead, which is extremely toxic to your growing baby's brain. So the fact that there is no legal limit still now today to food that has it in there really makes me nervous, and it scares me as a father. The fact that there is food out there, especially targeted towards children, that has so much amounts of lead in there that's maybe wondering why we're seeing a lot of issues with our children these days in terms of being able to absorb a lot of information and seeing a lot of these neurological issues popping up in things like autism, things like that. Metals like arsenic are always going to be present in things like rice, which is why it's so important that you're washing your rice, because the more you wash your rice, that actually shows that you are getting rid of a lot of that arsenic content just by washing the starches off the rice. So make sure if you're not washing rice, you start doing so because it's going to get rid of a lot of that arsenic. So I'm going to reiterate, if you are concerned with a lot of the potential of heavy metals accumulating in your body, because a lot of them are cumulative, they're going to happen your entire life and your body is not going to get rid of them. If you are looking for ways to make sure your body doesn't absorb them, then you need to really be focusing on eating things like dark leafy greens, foods heavy in vitamin C and calcium, because when you eat all those, your body basically, it's a shield for your body, so your body does not absorb quite as many heavy metals, okay? It'll absorb the vitamin C and calcium and a lot of the vitamins found in dark leafy greens, vitamin K, that are going to be absorbed in your body first, and those heavy metals will be excreted out when you go to the bathroom. So if you eat a lot more of those, a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, that's why they say you need to be eating this kind of stuff, you're going to help yourself at least not absorb quite so many. Okay, so if you have made it this far, I commend you. Congratulations. You are one of the few, because a lot of people do not like to hear this stuff because it puts them into a depressive or bad mood, when in reality, you at least need to know this stuff so you can make conscious decisions as a consumer what you're buying and what you should be buying, okay? I am one of those people that the whole reason why I entered this community in the first place is because I wanted to have self-reliance in my food, because I want to make sure that I can at least control something in my life and what's going in my wife and my child's bellies, in their bodies, okay? So that's why I grow so much food and source so much food, hunting, fishing, foraging, that kind of thing, because this is a very important subject to me. Ideally, I would like to become 100% food self-sufficient, but that will never happen because I cannot grow things like sugar and chocolate in my climate. So obviously I'm going to have to buy certain things, which is annoying, but you know, that's life. So if I can at least get 80%, 90% of my family's food and source it myself, that's going to make me feel better in general. So I guess if there's anything you can get from this video, at least it's awareness. Okay, and that's kind of one of the things I really wanted to do, and why I did this video is I want to make sure that you are aware of what you potentially are buying and some of these schemes the industry is doing, so you can at least maybe help enact change. Because there's a lot of times like bills, local is the key word here, local and state level bills will come up that make it illegal for a lot of these companies to be putting this stuff in your food. And if you pay attention to this, you can elect officials that will help stop this stuff from happening. And that's kind of the whole goal here. We're trying to elect officials that are at least aware of the problem to be able to fix it. You cannot fix a problem when somebody's getting paid from a company that's literally poisoning you, okay? And that happens all the time. If you actually look at the drug and food lobbies in this country, they are amazingly high, okay? And for those of you who aren't aware, the cigarette companies that were in charge of making food so addictive, or I'm sorry, in charge of making cigarettes so addictive, bought a lot of food companies in the 80s and a lot of stock and parts of companies in the 80s. So that's why a lot of those scientists went over to the food side to make those foods as addicting as they are. So we have an epidemic in this country, and I want to make sure that y'all are aware of this. And I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this video are aware and have been aware, but I'm hoping that by putting it out there, we can help make more people aware. So that's the whole point of doing this video. So if you learned anything at all, please do me a humongous favor and give this video a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel if you are not, and I will catch y'all on the next one, all right? Bye.